1. I made the unfortunate decision to date my neighbor. Besides of the bright giant red flags that I ignored, I should have known that living next to your boyfriend would be a really bad idea in case a breakup should ever occur. I will say that this relationship was beyond toxic. He was a functioning alcoholic and had way too much dependency issues, making it so I just couldn't stay home for a day to be by myself and do nothing. He also introduced me to his son within the first week of us dating. I was uncomfortable with this, and so was the mother. Don't get me wrong, I loved his son and thought the world of him, but it was way too soon for me to be involved in his life. The mother very much so felt the same way. I also started to see he would try to use his son as a way to get me to do things that I had already said no to. One example being that I was having surgery soon. I was at the point of the period where I couldn't eat because of the time window of the surgery. He wanted me to go out to lunch with him and his son. I said no because I couldn't eat. I would be starving. And it would be cruel to just have me sit there while they eat. So he didn't like that answer. He sends his son over to my place to beg me to go. His son did nothing wrong, so I didn't want to hurt him. So we went, and as predicted, I was starving, and very hurt that this man thinks this was fine, just so that I would spend time with them. Once we were home and the son was with his mother, I broke up with him. After I broke up with him, for many more reasons, he still would not leave me alone. After I had the surgery, he wanted me to go to his place to hang out. Not only did I remind him that I ended things, I just had ankle surgery, so I was not able to just walk over and climb up his multiple stairs. Again, he could not take no for an answer, so he comes over with his son again, and has his son ask me to come over and spend time with them. The situation was mostly easier to explain to his son why I cannot. I explained the surgery and that I cannot walk normal for the moment, which means no stairs. He was upset, but he understood. My ex gave me the most icy glare because he didn't win this time. Fast forward a week or two, and he's still just not leaving me the fuck alone. We lived in a ghetto area of the city. The kids and teens in our neighborhood liked to cause trouble and destruction wherever they could. They decided one day to throw eggs at people and things. I went to one of them that I knew and said that I wouldn't tell her mom about this. I was often asked to report to her mom if I caught her doing anything wrong, and I would supply the eggs. But the deal would have to be that they use all the eggs on my ex's car. All the kids happily obliged. I made sure to guide them to certain spots to jam in the egg, and they used, I think, 30 to 40 eggs in total on his car. And it was a hot day. He was asleep when this happened during the day, as he worked third shift. I sadly was not outside looking out the window when he was getting to his car, but my dad had been driving to his next location for work and saw my ex at the gas station, using the window cleaner to get off the cooked eggs from his car. 2. My one coworker, Nick, is a complete jerk. He has been working at my workplace since October, and as the only woman there, he was one of only a couple of guys to be weird with me, repeatedly asking about my relationship. I told him I have a relationship with my boyfriend James, who does the same career we do. He would ask me a lot of weird questions over the months about what race James was, what does he look like, asking to see pictures. I refused. I told him James is very successful, professionally respected, and I love him. Still, the curiosity was there every shift together. We had a work Christmas party in late December. James was there as my date. He is a 5'3½", 26-year-old guy. I'm 5'11". My other co-workers are totally normal, and it was a good time. Nick looked surprised and just had a cordial hello, and how did you meet? We met at our last job. That was that. Over the next few weeks, Nick, who is a 6'5" guy, made several comments about how, can he handle you? You didn't want a real man. You seem really dominant, so you like white boys. We all know you like little men. How does that work with sex? That pissed me off. This stuck with me as I have an extreme distaste for anyone who insults my man, especially being friendly to his face then saying this shit on the back end to his lady. 2 supervisors quit between the end of December and January. and we were called into my head boss's office to give our opinions on the appointments. One of the supervisory roles was focused on heavy paperwork and was the overnight role. Nick was openly talking about how he wanted the other position, which involved more freedom and daytime hours. I knew he would get it based on work experience and age, 8 years in the career, 32-year-old male. I have only 3 years as a 25-year-old woman, wasn't going to apply. My boss asked me what I thought, and I cited multiple examples of Nick covering people's rear ends with paperwork and weaponized his competence. I also really embellished how my other coworker, who was the other consideration, didn't do well at night, and seemed like he may fall asleep easily. I brought up examples of mistakes made by my other coworker, and made Nick sound like the only one capable of handling dozens of detailed reports and documents. My boss highly values my opinions, and I have been personally consulted about many irregular decisions. At the end of our conversation, my boss told me he made his decision. Nick was assigned to the overnight supervisory role a couple of days later. The pay is barely an increase, given he is forbidden from overtime, and the workload is way more than the base responsibilities. It has been a month of this role. He has since had many verbal arguments with his wife on the phone and is miserable. No idea I said anything. He seems too focused on the increased work and personal life stress to say anything about James. I'm a firefighter. We don't have an HR department, it is through the city. This isn't a company. I phrased it obscurely purposefully, but I'm not ashamed of my occupation, so cat is out of the bag. Also, at a previous department, things got so bad with sexual harassment with a select few men that I ate in the women's bathroom before applying where I'm at now. When I tried to report the past situation through the chain of command at a larger department, it got out from supervisors that I was a snitch, and my life was hell to the point of clinical depression. I already am involved in a lawsuit with my previous employer. James was one of a handful of guys who was still kind to me and didn't join in the workplace bullying. He wound up quitting that department of his own volition shortly after I left. Not scared of saying things generally, but I know how this career is and have learned a lot from that experience. It is very embarrassing to tell your boss and show him texts that your coworker openly asked for nudes, and if he can do certain things to you and hear, "Why can't you move on this? This is not a serious matter," from a superior. Also, the thing with Nick is a lot worse than I initially typed. Trying to keep it safe for work, he has openly asked if James has a small package to me, which was really upsetting. Did you have sex with him? When I told Chief I picked James up from the airport a day prior, when he came back from a special training. Some of these interactions were in front of one of the supervisors who quit, who has my back and asked what I wanted to do. I've pulled strings based on seniority before the promotion and basically made Nick work Christmas Day when I'm really not big on Christmas or holidays, and it meant way more to him than me. Didn't know I was involved in that either. In the meantime, I only have to see Nick now once a month during mandatory team meetings for an hour, which is better for overall well-being. I'm asking my union rep what my next steps would be this week, if this continues. 3. I moved back home last year to live with my parents. My evil grandmother lives here too. When I say evil, I mean this woman is absolutely batshit crazy. Does things like when I'm doing a load of laundry, she'll lurch out of her room and quietly stand behind me, while muttering things under her breath like, "You ungrateful bitch, I hate you. Wow, don't you know everything?" Other examples include graffitiing over my bottle of mouthwash with smiley faces and devil faces, and "Do not leave on the counter," since she didn't like that I left my mouthwash on the counter, apparently. She will talk about me out loud when she's in the bathroom, adjacent to my room, when she knows I am home, or even at 4 a.m. when she thinks I'm asleep. She is a living hell, and I cannot wait to move out. Recently, I found her digging through the trash can, going through the trash I just put in the bin. When I confronted her, she said that I never recycle and she has to fix everything because I am a lazy brat. So to clear things up, I have ADHD and major depression, so my room often goes uncleaned for weeks or months. When I finally have a good day, I clean everything and just grab anything I see as trash and throw it in a big bag. It can get overwhelming trying to sort through, but the big things like cardboard boxes or big bottles, so this kind of giant sweep approach helps me not get overwhelmed and actually make good progress. The actual recycling she is referring to is some papers, broken hangers, or small food boxes. I don't believe that her passion for recycling extends further than her strange obsession with me. Anyways, on to the PettyRevenge. A few days later, I got a new trash bag, filled it with some normal trash as well as some recycling. Just for fun, I threw in some condoms filled with lotion. I used tampon and some cat poop from the litter box. I made a big point of walking past her to the trash can with large water bottles sticking out from the bag and slamming the lid. I came back inside, and a few minutes later she went out to the trash bin and started digging. She didn't say anything, but she now seems to be leaving me alone. She has been to multiple doctors, even therapists and psychiatrists in the recent years, and has not been diagnosed with dementia. I have asked my mother to ask doctors about this specifically after seeing the ads on TV for aggressive dementia. And as she accompanies her to every appointment, there has been no diagnosis or suggestion. Yes, this may change, but knowing and living with her for the last 10 years on and off, she has always been bitter, obsessive, angry, and hostile to at least one person in the house at a time. I used to be close with her growing up, and my mother and sister were her targets. This has changed in recent years, mainly since I was freed from the TTI back in 2019. Ever since coming home, she's hated me. Did not hate me when I left. I would even write her letters. This woman has too much time on her hands and spends all day in bed watching CNN. I believe the crazy things she does and arguments she starts are the most interesting part of her day. That is my theory, at least, and we will see how things pan out after the next few years. I will hopefully move out soon. 4. Many moons ago, think early 2000s, I worked for a small tech company in the Midwest. I started out as a customer service rep. My husband also worked there in a higher level position in a different department. There was an office manager there who did not like me at all when I got hired. She originally was a billing rep and got moved to the office manager position when the original one who hired me quit. As an added note, her brother also worked there in the same department as my husband. I was pretty much a model employee, my stats were great, I was always on time, and customer feedback surveys were always glowing when I was on shift. However, it seemed like she had it out for me because she was always trying to find something to nitpick about my performance. I divulged all this to my husband, and he admitted that prior to us getting together and before I was hired, she had expressed interest in dating him, but he rejected her. I complained to the owner, but he pretty much just shrugged it off, because she had been there forever and he didn't want to rock the boat. Come performance review time, and she gave me a terrible review and a tiny raise, along the lines of everyone else on the team getting 50 cents to $1 per hour raise, and she gave me a nickel. About 6 months later, there was a big shake-up in the company, and the general manager and 2 higher-level people from my husband's department left to work at another company who did the same type of business. Shortly thereafter, a couple of big accounts my boss was pursuing ended up going to the other company, thinking that perhaps information about the accounts he was trying to land was leaked to the other company. He sent a couple of people home with pay for 2 days while he investigated, including the office manager who hated me. On day 2, he met with the team and confirmed that there was no leak, so he would be bringing the workers back in. You PettyRevenge. I had found the office manager's blog some time ago, and she had been posting frequent updates since the shake-up. When she was sent home, she posted multiple updates about the situation, including how she figured the owner would screw up payroll, not pay taxes, and get in trouble with the IRS. She also posted some pretty derogatory comments about the owner. She did make a feeble attempt to keep it anonymous by spelling everybody's names backwards and making up a fake name for the company. But it was very clear it was her and our company she was talking about. After the team meeting, I asked to meet with my boss alone and showed him all the posts. He dug in and found even more damning stuff she had written, including how she couldn't stand me and wanted to get me fired. I hadn't even seen that post until then. I couldn't contain my shit-eating grin when she returned to the office, only to be told to pack up her stuff and go. Within a year I had a big pay bump and a promotion to management, and I assume she is off somewhere making people miserable. 5. This is a story my mom told me about my grandfather that happened in the late 1950s. Keep in mind that it was a different time back then. My grandfather worked as a milkman his whole life. His company brand of milk was considered one of the better brands available, and for a very long time it was only available via milkman. It was not in any grocery store, much to the grocery store's dismay. The local grocery store kept asking and then begging the dairy company to please let them sell the milk in their store. Finally, an agreement was made. The milk would be sold in this store, but with a small markup compared to the cost of delivery, so people would have an incentive to keep using the milkman. Where the dairy company went wrong was the agreement on price was not in writing, so while the price of milk started with a markup, that markup soon went away. The dairy company complained, but nothing changed. The grocery store kept the price at the lower amount. Well, the milkmen in particular were not happy with this. This was threatening their livelihoods. So they all talked amongst themselves and made a plan. Throughout the next day, they gathered up their wives and kids and all headed over to the grocery store. Every adult grabbed a cart and started filling it with anything and everything non-perishable they could think of, from as many different aisles and shelves as possible. As each one finished piling their cart as high as humanly possible, they'd wheel it to the front and leave it there and simply walk out. Soon, half the store's items were now go-backs, piled in a ton of carts, with the shelves looking bare and ragged. The next day, the milkmen checked the price of their milk in the store, no change. Their little demonstration hadn't worked, so they felt they had no choice. They stepped it up a notch. They now started taking all the perishables, anything that was supposed to be kept cool, cold, and hot, and started redistributing these items for the grocery store. The ice cream belongs behind all the cereal boxes, right? And this fish should be put behind the cans of peas. The leaking steak goes on the top shelf behind the chips, etc., etc. By the end of the day, the grocery store was looking at a ton of wastage, while praying that they'd found all the starting to rot meat and fermenting dairy before things started to smell too much. The next day, the milkman went back to check the price of milk again. The markup had, for some reason, been added back to the price. Nothing more was ever said about it from the workers of either company, but that markup stayed on the milk from then on. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 344. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, hit the like button. It helps YouTube recommend the videos to other people. And if you'd like to get early access to these videos and help me out, you can do that by supporting me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. You'll get the videos on Monday or Tuesday at the very latest. It is usually Monday. Quite frankly, YouTube's just not paying the bills anymore. So if we can get the Patreon up a little bit, it lets me do this as long as I possibly can. You'll also find a link to the Hellfreezer merchandise store on Teespring, and if you really enjoyed today's video, you can leave a tip by clicking on the heart with a $sign underneath. Okay, there's no other business as far as I'm aware today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: are you old enough to remember guys going around the doors and selling things? Like, delivering the milk. There was guys who used to go around and sell potatoes. I remember the coal man used to come to the door when I was younger. Yes, I'm that old. I'm not sure. I don't think we ever got milk delivered, though. Although I do recall they used to do milk and orange juice. I think that was probably right about the time they were starting to phase all that out. So, why don't you let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's have the answer of the day from a previous video. And this one comes in relation to the question, do you read in the bathroom? And today's answer comes from Al Tyrell. When I had a sit-down job, I used to read short stories. Now that I stand and walk for my shifts, I play solitaire on my phone or even at home. Maybe I should pick up a collection for the bathroom. I miss those stories. Thanks for asking, and do take good care of yourself. Thank you very much for your answer, Al Tyrell. And with that, I'm gonna head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.